So I'm Tim Dieltjens. I work for TI Automotive, and today I will talk to you about tariffs and how they changed our technology decisions. It's going to be more of a story than instructions or a technical discussion. I will gladly do technical discussions afterwards, though. It's going to be a little bit shorter session to keep it open for Q&A, and yeah, I look forward to your questions. So first, I want to talk about TI Automotive. I think a lot of you are not familiar with this company. It's a 100-year-old company. It's an automotive tier 1 or tier 2 supplier. We were actually part of the Model T in 1922. And you can see some of the components that TI Automotive creates. So it does brake lines on the right top, fuel tanks, plastic ones, which is actually more safe than metal ones. And then you have the pump with the floater, and this goes into the fuel tank. So you can see here what it goes in. But I want to start today off with a quote. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Jack Welch. He's the chairman and CEO of General Electric, a very smart man. And his quote is to change before you have to. I think that's very powerful, right? We can all get behind it, but I disagree with it. I think it's a lot of times impossible to do. Because if you have to change before you have to, you need to know what you have to change into. You have to know what's coming, right? What are you expecting? What are your requirements? So I think it is okay to change when you need to, right? And this also resolves because in technology, we always feel behind, right? Someone is always doing something new. You are not behind. You just haven't hit that wall yet. So today, first I will set the stage. I will go over what our team looked like. Then I'm going to talk about the storm, the tariffs that hit us, the breaking point and how we pivoted away from it, how we built with speed, and then the numbers, right? We're going to put some numbers. A number says more than words. Does that work too? And then what this means to you. So I think you're all familiar with this, an Instant Pot. And I want to ask you a question by raising your hand. Who has one of these? Thank you. And now keep your hand up if one of them is on a shelf, unused, or in your basement. I see a couple. That's what today is about. We use pots and pans every day, right? We cook for our family, and we make amazing meals. But one day, 15 of your friends show up, and they're all hungry. What are you going to do? The pots and pans can't provide you with all the food you need in the record amount of time. So you start opening cabinets. And then you see, the Instant Pot. It was always there. You could have always used it, but you never needed to. But today, you used it, and you fed your friends. Well, this is what happened to me. But my 15 friends were tariffs, and they were not hungry for food, but they were hungry for data. So to set the stage, I'm going to talk a little bit more about TI Automotive and our team. So you see 3 logos on the top. When I joined, it was TI Automotive on the left logo. And then we went public to TI Fluid Systems and back to TI Automotive in March at the same time the tariffs hit. What's funny is that I had my badge when I joined, and by this time, the name is the same again. So I never had to update my badge. We had a 5-people team for all of the analytics. It was a global team, people in Europe, people in Mexico, and local people. We dealt with everything. We had around 3,000 reports globally for 120 plants. This has now increased to 150 plants, and the company is a $4 billion company, and now increased to $5 billion. Just to set the stage to get an understanding what we were dealing with. And then in March of 2025, I think all of you can still remember this day, we got hit with tariffs. And man, we got hit hard. I can tell you that. It was ever changing. Every day was something new. And everybody kept asking questions. They're like, Tim, what is this data? What is that data? What is it impacting us? And we had to come up with answers very, very quick. And these tariffs are very complicated. We have global tariffs. We have country-specific tariffs, 232 auto, metal, steel, aluminum, you can name them all. And we also had to track the country of origin or the certificate of origin. So it doesn't mean that you ship it from one country, you're tariffed for that one country. And this is all tracked through HTS codes, and every part is tracked through that. So the company needed a lot of data around tariffs, and in particularly 3 teams. And these teams needed everything. I'm going to go through all of them. So first is a commercial team. The commercial team is responsible to get reimbursements from our customers, right? We pay the tariff, but we need to get that money back. In some cases, these tariffs were 50, 100, 150% because they were compounding. That's not something we can absorb as a company. We need to get reimbursed. And it's very difficult to do because these customers, they're like, we don't want to pay. That's your problem, right? That's what I would do. So we have to show line by line every payment for every part every time. And keep in mind, every customer wanted a different format and a different line item. Then you had the customs group. This actually provided our first savings. The customs group is responsible to provide accurate data to the broker. I'm sure you're not familiar with the tariff, how it works, but you work with a broker, and the broker works with the government. They have a special license in order to work with them. You cannot work with the government directly. But you provide the broker your information, your part information, how much aluminum content value, what the value is, where it's coming from, and your HTS codes, and then we get paid. We pay the broker pays the government, and then we get a proof of payment. If this data is wrong, you start overpaying, and it's your responsibility, not the broker, not the government. In case it's wrong, let's say we have a part that is worth $1, and we have 5 cents of aluminum content value in there, right? We take off the labor and just the value of aluminum. If we didn't specify that it was only 5 cents, we would pay the regular tariff and then aluminum content value tariff on the full amount. So you pay 50% on the $1. We were able to get that data to get the 5 cents. So we only paid the 50% on the 5 cents. This was an enormous saving right off the get-go. Next, purchasing. I think that's all what you're familiar with, right? Purchasing, the sourcing of the components can be sourced from different areas, particularly vendors in the US. This is also tricky because you can have a US vendor, but they actually get their components from somewhere else. We have copper for a Marysville plant. It is from an American vendor, but it's actually sourced from the Netherlands. And another thing they had to do is negotiate, right? Our vendor says, well, we have 25% tariffs. We said, no, no, no. We would only pay 18% of that. You have to absorb the other ones. And then lastly, upper management want to see scenarios. They want to see impacts. What if the tariffs change tomorrow? What if it's this percent? What is that percent? What if we go there? So we had a lot of requirements from all these different teams. And on top of that, with our small team, on our first report that we created, we had very long data refreshes, 2 to 4 hours. We're loading a full bill of material. We have so many different data sets to look at. Then we have a distributed team. As I said, we're in Europe, we're in Mexico, and we're here. We have different time frames, different responsibilities. And then lastly, inconsistent data sources. Before this tariffs hit, nobody cared about the content value, the aluminum content value of a part. It didn't matter. We didn't have that data. So now we're dealing with a lot of Excel files. I'm telling you, 100 plus Excel files. And I know how all of you data people love Excel files. So let's talk about something interesting here, and that's architecture. As a data architect, this is what I love. These are very simplified architectural diagrams here. I'm not sure if you're all familiar with Power BI. You good? Okay. So with Power BI, we have a semantic model, and we're directly connecting to all the data sources. As I said, we joined with another company. We were acquired. That's our Redshift. We have our own warehouse with our own ERP systems. And then we have SharePoint with hundreds of Excel files. And every time we had to change a percentage, we had to refresh the whole semantic model. We're taking all of the bill of material, we're taking all these Excel files, we're taking it every single time. And keep in mind, these Excel files are manual. Someone makes a mistake, the reload fails. So what did we do? We start looking in our cabinets. Where is my Instant Pot? And what did I see? In Microsoft Fabric, we got a lakehouse. Isn't that a great thing to use here? A lakehouse, a warehouse, data pipelines. So we set up a lakehouse. Everything connects to the lakehouse. Now, when we need to change a percentage, we don't have to reload the data. We just pipeline it through to our Gold, to our warehouse. And another added benefit is how we had those different internal customers like sales and purchasing. They had their own reports now. We could customize it for each, but they were all running on the same data. So I say numbers say more than words. The team of 5 people spread out in the world, over the Europe and Americas, we were able to save $1.7 million in the first 2 weeks. That's a big impact. And $7 million by the end of the year. And that is just in the broker fees, those percentages, the correct data that we provide to the broker. The sales team has customer recoveries of 16 million, which is crazy how they did that, because the customers really want every piece of information. And then our data refresh was minutes instead of hours. There was only one disadvantage of this. I planned my lunch break around the data refreshes, and I had to cut it short now. So everybody's fed. Luckily, it's after lunch, so nobody would get hungry from this picture. But everybody got the data, right? All their bellies are full, we got the results, and everybody's happy. But I don't want to leave you empty-handed. I want to give you some messages to come home with and some questions. The first question is the cost of staying where you are higher than of moving? And the second one is the most important one, right? Is there something in your hands that you're not using that you should be using? Tomorrow or next week, think about this and what is my Instant Pot? Is there something I can find? What is an issue I've been dealing with? And what is an easy solution? And then the last, can you deliver something in days? Or does it always take weeks or months? All the pictures taken. So I want to thank the WIT team. I want to thank you for your attention. I know it's a short session, but I really wanted to bring home this message. And I want to thank my team in particular, every single one of them. I want to thank Gabby, Edward, Gonzalo, and Kaylee. These people put in so much work as a small team in a very short time. Also, if you're hungry for data, my manager, Apurva, will be in the keynote tonight, so please go and take a look. And then lastly, I want to, one second. I want to give you my LinkedIn if you have any questions that come up after this, or if you have other Instant Pot stories you want to share with me, feel free to add me or email me. And as a data architect, I'm also always available to discuss any architectural discussions. And with that, I want to thank you for everything, and I'll be open for questions. Yep. You're saying the visibility?
Meaning that if I have a part, then the first year of the part is coming from some other country. So how you guys deal with these kind of complex situations?
Yes, that's the issue, right? We had a bill of material that we loaded in. And so we applied rules to every subcomponent of that bill of material. So in some cases, our products have 12 levels. So for every level, we looked at what is the rule and what is the percentage. And then we could break that all down. And then that's rolled up to get your final percentage. Because you might actually have tariffs on one from Mexico, right? You import from Europe to Mexico, get a 35%. And then you import from Mexico into the US, you get another 50%. But it's not on the full amount, right? That's what you're saying. So yeah, we had a full breakdown, and we actually told the people what rules apply to each component. So it was just a click of a button, and it will open it up. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Anybody else questions down here? Oh, sorry.
So you mentioned that 3,000 analytics reports that your team
Mm-hmm.
has developed. How are you measuring the usage of that, and how are you measuring that it's actually moving the needle of the business?
The measurement, we just use the capacity metrics in Power BI. Yeah, that's mostly what we do. A lot of these reports we actually migrated from different systems. So we had ClickView and SSRS reports and custom reports. So a lot of them are migrated there. In those 3,000, we have copies for development, production, and also region located. So in general, we know which are the main hitter reports, and then the others we just kept as is. They're not in refreshes as they're SSRS, so it doesn't really impact us in resources.
Yeah, I mean, since it's kind of a data and AI technology, I'm kind of interested in your thoughts, sir. Dashboards are always a lagging indicator. Right? Business asks, they give me a dashboard, then the team takes whatever one. The best team maybe take a day, some teams might take a week, and by the time it's already late to act on the business problem itself. What's your thoughts in terms of from the self-service analytics, if I have to use that word, quote unquote? How do you make the business empowered with like adding new data to their report and not always have to come back to it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely, and I think especially with Power BI, people want to do self-service. What I've seen is you have users who want to do it, and you have users who don't. And the big issue is the people that want to do it, they want to connect to the source themselves, and you cannot validate that the results and the data they have is correct. So I think the only way you can do that is by providing them a gold level, a gold layer, where they can safely connect to. And that's what we're going to build actually now. We're in the process where next week we're finishing our architecture for that. But we're going to create, and you'll hear Apurva talk about this tonight as well, the data buffet. So in a buffet, you make your own plate, right? But you go and you pick the data you want. So that's what you would like to create in order to do that. You want to have certified data in your gold layer where people can use it. And I think a lot of challenges around that, it's not just importing the data and cleaning it. It's like how to make sense of the data, right? You have to catalog it.
That's the thing, yeah.
Because
are you going to,
sorry.
So on that, it's sort of connected. We're in a very similar spot, and we added Fabric to 365 license, and I'm like moving SharePoint and external API and SFTP drops and integrating them so that they're not just connected dirty right to Power BIs with flag refresh and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Are you utilizing any AI or agentic models available within that ecosystem to point only to that future gold layer? Is that something you're thinking of, like the self-service or providing, like, is that part of what you're talking about there? What is the buffet service utility? Is it still just saying go and make your own Power BI, or is it use this model to ask questions of the gold layer, or what are you thinking of there?
Yes, so it's more the technical users, right? We have certain plant managers, and they are building reports on Excel files right now, right? So they need to have access to their tables, and they can manage it. But you bring up a good point is about the agentic AI. Try to avoid AI today. I got it this far. But Microsoft has services in their reports that you can use. I think you just have to buy a F32 or higher, and it will be included. And yeah, you can run it on your own data sources as well. But I think we're waiting to see how that goes. Yeah.
So I work in a similar environment where we have to give reports or build dashboards to which they need yesterday, always. So in your case, it's like you have strict timelines to build the data source, build the goal layer, build the reports, do the validation testing. How do you make sure what you're building is right? You did the testing, validation with 5 resources. Even like we have 15, 20 resources, it's really hard to get data from all different sources, clean it, transform it, apply the right business rules, then build a goal layer, and then build dashboards on top of it. How do you make sure like everything like from March till December now, like or within 1 year, like you made this data available and it's right, it's good, it's true, trusted, everything.
Yeah, you need to partner up with the business, right? And eventually they're going to be responsible for it. That's how we manage it. So luckily we already had a very good bill of material. That was a good start. That was already validated, which we reused. But in the end, when we move to test, the business has to validate, and they have to confirm that the data is correct. And what really helped us is to show visibility in the actual calculations behind it. We added line items. This is how this is calculated. This is how this is. And suddenly, all the help desk tickets went away. And we added a sheet on the next page, next tab in Power BI, explaining every single thing. And I think that's what I would recommend, because people don't trust the data until they understand it. Once they understand, they're good with it.
How are you managing that data library, that business visible data library in, I mean, I think that's incredibly useful. A lot of times you make a business usable library and like 3 weeks later, you know, you've redefined some underlying elements, the vendors redefine some underlying elements, a new sources come in, you've got multiple sources with competing of the same sort of value of data, and they're both in there, or you have to make a decision to pick one. Do you have a process for updating, the technical visible libraries, and then the libraries that you're sharing in that way? Like, what is some of your process around that?
As we were a small team, we just did a very simple process. Update this document, update that page. Because our thinking was, and it is like someone else is going to work on this report. Now, how do they know? They have to go through DevOps tasks. They have to start looking there. If it's in the second page of the report, it's a lot easier to do.
How big was the volume of your data?
I'm sorry?
How big was the volume of the data, what you have in code?
For tariffs only, it was not that big, but it was a couple million records, like 5, 6, 7 million. We actually didn't include Europe because we couldn't handle that volume. We had a set, CU, set capacity, so we have to be careful to hit that.
When you build a code layer, do you follow any architecture, like for building the data pipeline?
Yeah. So this was just a small quiver. This was us getting our hands wet, right, in the technology. Right now we're unrolling our full architecture. And we're using a data warehouse for the gold layer, which is, the schemas are per domain, and then we have row-level security on that. And we have everything split up in certain workspaces. So we have workspaces per domain, and then we have like an orchestrator domain space that orchestrates everything.
It will be interesting this year as an industry to see ontology works out. Because what you said, that exactly ontology is trying to solve that, is to once you land in a proper place, then the business meaning of that, because for example, vehicle pricing at one table could be something and different table could be something. The challenge has always been, even in the relational data, we know that in the physical world they are connected, but through 2-yard diagram he gave, never connected them, could never express that, because you have the columns, and then how do you have this column to that? It was very difficult to always equal join, things like that. So a lot of companies, we know that trying to build now the methodology where to build this knowledge graphs and data and nodes, so that you can run then your query, then you'll be able to find a relationship between the different nodes.
So to that point, we had the HTS codes, and we had incomplete lists everywhere. And we had Excel files. And we would show one code, and they'll be like, where does this come from? This is wrong, right? To your point, how do you know which one is right? And a very simple solution, tell them where it came from. Tell them the source, tell them the calculation. We first pull from this, if that's not available, this, and then that's not available, yeah. I think just inform the users is the best thing you can do, because you're always gonna manage incomplete data. There's not a perfect system out there. And especially the plants who are responsible for entering this data, they have to meet goals, right? They're pushing product. They cannot worry about mistyping of an HTS code.
Yeah, the source needs to be more automated. We are doing a lot of automation in the downstream,
Yes.
but not in the upstream.
Yeah, that's
And that's where in the first place, the wrong data is generated.
so we work with a lot of dealers. Dealers have two different systems. They're both independent. They input all the service information in one system, and then next day or third day they'll update their warranty claims on different system using the number from this system. Now if they do a typing mistake, typo, or if they change a date with the numbers recycling, we don't find the match between these two in our downstream system. So it gets very difficult to match these two data, as you said, and then find which one matches with this exact service details and information.
Yeah, those are tough things.
And it's not like few thousand records, it's millions of records, like 600 million records for 2 or 3 years. Like think of like for 1 year, like even for 1 year, 300 to 400 million records.
I don't have an answer right now, but
Well, the gentleman in the from Chase, were you in that session? One thing he said and I was wondering if I heard this, but he was suggesting, I think, to use AI agent to surmise trends and relations on the data layer internally. So if you have multiple data sets or you onboard a new data set, instead of always just doing the you have to get the business users, you have to have the business fields and then the technical fields and then the relations between the two. I think he was saying he's using agents to help act as analysts to understand repetitive or correct relationships that aren't like where there could be a break. It could be figured out if eyeballs saw it, what two records are what should match, even though they don't have the typical join match on them. And I thought that was a very interesting idea if that's effective. Because that's another problem that we run into is you get a new data set and it's like a monthly data set and you already have a daily data set, and some of the columns really could just be the sum of daily data, but some of them are brand new. So how, without having to go through it every time and bringing in the same thing twice, and then the users could end up getting, someone could use a monthly, someone's using the sum of the daily, and you could get two different answers, obviously. How do you weed that out, like, initially without going through all the fields, eyeball, like by hand, every time? I thought that was, I don't know if anyone's tried that, but I thought it was an interesting way to use, potentially, an agent on onboarding data or new dictionaries. But
I think it's more like a fuzzy matching you'll probably be looking at.
but then what would you get out of that? I don't know.
But
I might try it later this year, and then maybe I'll sign up for one of these exercises.
is there a way you can link both systems?
Not at the source.
Not the source.
I have the same independent like this.
And the
Some
IDs?
system here and some other system.
I have so many in the second.
Now they are working on like how we can tie the system together. And they are different vendors for these systems, which are at the dealers. So it's not with one organization working.
you have a user integrity dependency still in two independent source systems.
So there are 25 vendors which provide these systems. We get data from all these systems. We still standardize it. We still apply the rules and then standardize it for downstream users. And I'm a downstream consumer, so I get this data from at least like a good stage, and from there I apply the business rules. Still have to clean some data, make sure there are no outliers in that, and then connect with all different data pieces. Like, okay, if I have a service information, I need a vehicle information, dealer information, customer information, maybe not customer information complete, but like what type of customer it is, basically. So all this data points, parts information, and then I build gold data, and then we push it to the dashboards or reports. So that's, but that process entire, even for me, took like 3 to 6 months, or even like building one single source for service data, and that's why I was asking you. And for testing validation also it takes time. There are like 200 users using this report once it is built.
Can you force the keys? Can you say this is the keys currently in the system, this is the one you have to enter in both systems? So instead of being reliant on the first system, you already provide the key to them. You said this is related to that. Is there an option to do that?
I don't know. I don't work with the source.
Yeah, but you force it to them, right? So you say.
So yeah, that's what we are trying to make sure, like dealers enter the right information so that we get the right information.
And what we've done in our company, and it's more for like parts, we have set certain like values. Like the first two is like a 02 means this. Maybe something like that can be enforced. So you get a meaningful ID.
Yeah, it's like when Nico.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We have a win ID which is 17 characters. It has all parts, certain parts.
Yeah. But yeah, if they're auto-generated, you're stuck with it.
Auto-generated, you have 20 vendors who have their own systems. They generate those numbers, recycle every year, so the dates, same numbers can be reused next year as well. So we cannot exactly match that data,
Wow.
even if we get the same number.
Yeah, that's a struggle.
Yeah, we find 50% match, remaining 50% we have to guess and apply some calculation.
Yeah. I would like to discuss it further after the session. I think you get a little bit more in depth. But
Try the agent, and then we heard about
yeah.
I know that works. That sounds like something that might work for that, but I don't know.
You can use a Databricks agent, right? You just said that session. No, you're good.
So, like, right now you said you have a full data for tariffs, right?
It's called AF for, yes.
So if it's an uncertainty happened right now, it's going to be gone. That's it, for example. So, like, do you guys have any plans for like any kind of uncertainties in future going to come up and create a good pool data for that as well?
So it's all rule-based, so we can easily change it. So one part is the proof, right, the actual incurrence, and the other one is like a further look, so it's just the rules. So we know for aluminum, this is the cost from these, and that's how we apply it. Is that your question, or?
No, like my question is like, for example, right now, right, like you have solved the problem for tariff, let's say, for example, right, assuming that, and then you said you have a pool data,
Mm-hmm.
which actually helps you in identifying all the cost at the time for tariff as well. So, I mean, of course, it was an uncertainty. It was for a period of time. Probably it's going to be gone maybe next year or whatever. So, like, do you guys also working on some other type of uncertainties to come up with this goal data and?
Yes, yes. We're still till this day, we're still working on it. We get more requirements from customers to provide more data, better data as well. And to your point, I don't think it's going to go away. What I think it's actually become harder, because if they say the tariffs are illegal, now we have to backtrack and start finding what was paid, who was paid, how it affects. So I think that's actually going to be even more difficult than the original tariffs that came up. But even to this day, I know that they're fighting different tariff rules.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I was just thinking, like, of course, it is in supply chain world, it is considered as uncertainty, right? But like, that's why I'm thinking, like, what other kind of uncertainties you think you guys can have in future, like, or
Yeah, I didn't expect tariffs to come. So it's a little bit to my main point, right? It's like we can change before we have to, but we don't know what's coming. So I think what we have to take away is be ready to change, right? Yeah, and if you have all the data in your gold layer, you can always refer back to it. So I think that's going to be the positive for us if they finally are going away, these tariffs. It's a good question. Thank you. You got a question, Arnie? No?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. You got me thinking. I may have an Instapot somewhere. I don't know, but I have to double check. I'm curious about your decision-making process back then. Did you consider other options, other solutions, like back in whatever May of 2020 or March?
Yeah.
Like when the problem hit you, correct? Like you guys look at that. What is it? You have to standardize my 200 Excel files. What do I do? Python, or like how did you find that Instapot internally?
It's very good. That's actually a very good question. And I think a lot of people, they didn't even think to look around, right? They're just heads down. This is what we know. This is how we're going to do it. We've always done it this way. But I was the one that started looking around, started opening the shelves, right? And we have Microsoft Fabric. It was Power BI, but now it's Fabric. And we knew they added different things, but what it was, we didn't know, right? But it was there.
So you're Microsoft Shop.
Yes. So we just started pulling stuff. But I'm sure if you have an old SQL server laying around, or you have Snowflake or something else, you can probably use it, right? You might have an Azure subscription and like, oh, I'm just going to use a blob storage with a simple table and start moving data into there. It is what is specifically and easy for you to use at that time. Because it's a quick decision. You cannot go and talk to vendors and do POCs and no, we need that data right away. Yeah.
Looking back at it, do you think that's the right solution to the problem? Would you have done it differently if you were to redo it right now?
Well, if I knew what I knew, I probably would have done it a little bit differently. I would have gone with this structure way earlier. In the beginning, we thought it was just a simple report, and it became a lot more complex. We had a lot of tech debt to deal with before we even got here. So if anything, I would have liked to be more integrated and at least have the team trained on this new technology before we had to do it. I think that's the only thing. Get certifications, know it, and force them to do it, right? I think that's the one thing I would do. Because I was the only one that knew about it, and I was the only one that could create it. But if the team knew, they would have thought about it and created it. Yeah. Awesome, thank you.
Follow-up question, but
Oh, yeah.
Hey, so this might be slightly off topic of tariffs, but obviously, TI Foods was acquired by ABC Technologies last year and then went back to, TI Automotive. So were there any challenges that your team faced with that merger, an acquisition and merger, when it comes to different architecture, things you had to work on?
Oh, absolutely. So we're a Microsoft shop, right? And we had a very stable architecture. Everything processes were very stable. And then we came in, ABC came in, and they had different technologies like AWS and Redshift and glue scripts and S3 buckets. And we're not familiar with them, so that was a big challenge. We ran into some issues with that. So one issue was a specific date. If it's before 1800, it would break the whole pipeline. And trying to figure out stuff like that was very tough. And another thing is actually the difference in people. Right, the people, how they deal with the data, how they want to see it, it's very, very different. And the culture was very different as well. They came from a culture where everything was outsourced, and we did everything internal. So when they're there, we're asking questions, there's nobody to respond to it. It's, here's the documentation, figure it out. So that was a big challenge. And we still deal with it, some of it today. But it was a good learning opportunity, and I know a lot more about AWS right now, so. Yeah. Are you going through the same thing?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, was just wondering.
Okay, great. Thank you.
We have 2 minutes left. Question.
Does he have to sign up? Oh, 1 minute.
Yeah, 1 minute. Okay.
You have to be quick.
Yeah. So, follow-up question on what you just mentioned about like upskilling. So, if you are going to apply new technology, you need some upskilling for the team, not just 1 person or 2 person, or entire team, because entire team is going to work on that. And then, what you are going to do is not like quick fix or something quick, because it has to be, needs a structured approach, proper approach with good process, best practices sometimes. Because if it's a quick thing, one report, then it's fine, like one time. But if it's something going to be a long term, it has to be with best practices or structured approach. Like how did you like apply those things quickly, and like how did you upskill your team quickly on that?
It's a different use case, right? So in those cases, you know what to expect. The requirements are clear. You can take your time. But the thing is, how to prepare your team for when it's not. This was really difficult, right? We heard, oh, tariffs might happen or not, but then suddenly they were there. We didn't think it, thought it was like a little bit of a bluff, right? So that's when we really hit. And there's no time to do all those analysis. You need to provide it to the business right now. So I think if you have some good data right now, it's probably going to help you. And then if you have that knowledge and the training. But the training should happen right now, right? If your team is not training on new technologies, but what I did with training is I actually gave them a free time, a spot in their day to train. I would say this day you're doing 2 hours, and then I would follow up on it, and they have to present it. They have to tell me what they learned. Because if you don't do it, they're working. People are knocking on their door. They're not learning. Okay. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate it.